And what's on fire? The home. And this is everywhere I go. The metals are on fire. It's like putting your car or your house inside of a giant microwave and turning it on. Doesn't work too well in the organic matter. It dries it out internally from the inside out, but I don't believe they combust unless there's some metal components in the water, some type of metals. A good 30, 40 homes have just turned to white ash. And this one was fairly hot, so the trees burned up to some degree, but around the perimeter, the forest refused to ignite. It's dried out, cooked, but it just wouldn't ignite. And you probably have 5 to 10 different conifers up here, mostly in the pine family, and perhaps you have a couple cedars also. All those should have burned first, and then the houses second, but it's the opposite world. Everything that should burn doesn't, and everything that is burning shouldn't.
It's so good to be with you, friends, and welcome as you join us for another informative show. We love having you as a part of our community. Our guest speaker this evening is Robert Brame, and the title of tonight's show is Canada Ablaze, Weaponized Control. It's July 2nd, 2025, and this is the Empower Hour. We are so pleased to welcome Robert Brame back to the Empower Hour. Robert is a respected forensic arborist with over 20 years of experience in his field, and he's spent a decade researching and analyzing wildfires. In part 4 of this special series, Robert will provide insight into the real causes of the fires that are devastating communities across Canada, many of which he argues are not the result of natural events. If you've missed the previous interviews with Robert, we encourage you to head over to our website this week to fully inform yourself of these questionable and unnatural fires that are sweeping across our nation. And now, would you all please help me welcome Robert Brame. Hello, Robert. Welcome once again to the Empower Hour.
Well, it's nice to be back. Nice to see you both.
Thank you, Heather, and welcome, Robert. I was again looking forward to the show. It's like our annual show. This is the third summer, and you know what is the factor that brings you back on the show? But it's summer and the country's on fire again. This isn't happening in the dead of winter, of course, and we've got, I think, reasonable concerns. Your past shows have just been so compelling in the information and evidence that you've provided. And so, yeah, welcome to the show again.
Well, I'm glad to be back, and I just needed to get all this information out and try to wake people up to what's really going on with these fires.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know that you're not just focused on America or Canada, that this is happening in countries around the world. So we know this isn't just by coincidence. So there has to be a global factor in here. And the United Nations and World Economic Forum are really intent on taking people's land. As Klaus Schwab said, you'll own nothing and be happy. They want you in controllable cities. So I would imagine that has something to as a factor in what we're experiencing right now globally around the world.
Yeah, I think it's happening all over the whole planet, if you will. Doesn't matter what city, county, state, or country. Everybody's under attack.
Mm-hmm. And it's a multi-pronged attack as well. Before coming on the show, you mentioned you're in California, and not that the show is going to be about mass immigration or this invasion, but you were saying how the population is really, really changing in your area, and how a lot of the Indian population are moving in, buying houses, taking jobs. And I says, yeah, that's again part of this global agenda, and it's something called population replacement, or the United Nations Global Compact on Migration and so-called Sustainable Development Goals. But it is literally to destroy Western democracies, and again, to be able to control people, this massive wealth transfer that we're experiencing as well. So before we begin the show, because I'm really looking forward to your presentation, I want to play this short clip by a fellow named Mario. He's here in Canada. He's always got great clips reporting on things, but this one specifically has to do with the fires.
Relentlessly pursue the truth, regardless of how uncomfortable it is. So it was to my surprise when I saw this. There was a fact check against me by AFP again. All I did was read the information that was on Manitoba's website that talked about the fact that 99 out of the 109 fires that are happening right now were caused by humans. This is directly from the AFP website, Big Cross. My caption was, "Climate change spotted pouring gas in Manitoba." Because despite everything we've been told for quite some time now, this is the truth of the matter today, and there can be no revisionist history to point that climate change was the result of these uncontrollable fires that we are currently dealing with today. Before it was published in the news, and Juno News was one of the first to actually report this, where mainstream media completely avoids this type of title or narrative, even though it is true. I had found this earlier than anyone else because I went on the Manitoba website related to fires. While I broke this news first, AFP wants to say that human-caused Manitoba wildfire data is being misused to downplay climate impact. Well, the numbers speak for themselves. 99 divided by 109 is just over 90%. 90% of the wildfires were caused by humans, and as it was reported to me in confidence, several of them were Indigenous people who did so because there's disputes internally. Do you think the news will cover that? I saw a little clipping that they have arrested people. I haven't seen their names. Why do you think that's the case? It doesn't fit the narrative.
Well, isn't that just something? And it's not supposed to fit the narrative because we know that this climate alarmism, everything that they're doing is staged and it's intentional. And I love it that Mario and so many other good commentators are exposing this truth on a daily basis. Now, I just have to share screen because there's another article that I want to share to our audience. And this just came out. BC Ferries banned certain EVs from sailing. And I'd heard of this before. There were EV vehicles that were coming from overseas, and the ships, they caught on fire. Unfortunately, there was even an incident where individuals have died, those working on these cargo ships to get these vehicles into America and Canada. And we had the evidence. I was reporting on this a year ago that EV cars are exploding. That's on our 15-minute city page, even at random. We've got EV bikes where people, I don't know why people have cameras in their homes. Kind of freakies me out because they can be kind of tapped into. But in this certain scenario, there was a number of people that had the little EV scooters or bikes in their apartments, and the camera caught them just exploding. And I mean, this is extremely dangerous. So we kept saying, like, how can you possibly be downtown Vancouver with all these EV vehicles parked in the underground parking and not expect some sort of tragedy is coming? Well, here it is on BC Ferries. They've banned, it says certain electric vehicles. I would say it's anything with an EV battery in it. So I don't know why they said that. Electric and hybrid vehicle charging is also now prohibited at terminals and on ships. Battery-powered cars with major damage, such as exposed batteries, wiring issues, or fluid leaks will not be allowed to board. Those with minor damage not interfering with the power system will have to be approved by the master of the vessel. I mean, is he an expert in this? Like, how can he say whether or not this should be approved? Inoperable electric vehicles, such as those being towed, are also barred from entry. So anybody on the island who needs to get their vehicle to the mainland for whatever reason to get it fixed, even tow trucks cannot transport the EV vehicles. So you would have to have it specifically on some sort of it was a barge, I believe, that would transport dangerous goods. So lithium-ion batteries are widely used, but when damaged or handled improperly, they can pose serious fire risks. So that just happens to be, what we're going to be hearing a lot more of. And then, of course, what is also happening, let me just stop share. There we go, is that the EV battery companies that Trudeau was lobbying and platforming and on the front line of implementing in Ontario, these plants are going belly up. And yet Canadian taxpayer dollars went into it. We want to say, where's the money? In the green slush fund that we've all heard about as well, hundreds of millions of dollars going to Trudeau's friends. We're all like, where is the money? And this is part of this massive wealth transfer. It was never meant to fix any problems. So anyways, Robert, before I handed it over to you, I just wanted our viewers to know some extras that are happening in Canada and that also support and prove, something very shady is afoot here. And it's definitely not for the betterment of the environment, the world, and definitely not American or Canadian citizens. I'm going to hand the floor over to you. And if you would start your presentation, that would be great.
All right. Well, I wanted to start with Canada and start talking about the fires you're experiencing right now up there. I just read the other day, 7.8 million acres have burned in Canada alone. And July just started. That's pretty odd to me. It kind of reminds me of 2 years ago in Canada, where they burned down 43 million acres in Canada. That's just an unconscionable amount of acreage. And I'm not aware of how many houses that is. In Manitoba, they've already burned 490,000 acres alone. And the Shoe Fire, I guess, is the biggest one. 1.16 million acres have burned. These numbers are just gigantic. And I've not researched the history on Canada to see if they've had huge fires for 100 years, but it's fairly doubtful unless you wouldn't have any forest left. But there was an aerial photo of this also, and the forest looks like it was dead but not really burned, and the only thing on fire was this motorhome, I guess. That's the only thing in the picture that was on fire. And I'm seeing this quite often. I might see a ground fire where the grass or the dirt itself is on fire, because I really believe these fires will go along the ground with no organic materials at all that are burning. It's just the ground itself with its water content and the metals that are present in the parent soil. I believe those are activated, and those are where your flames are coming from. And all organic matter above that is igniting because of the liquids in it. So I'm going to go through a bunch of these shots and do the best I can to explain what's going on. Here, this beautiful home here somebody had burned to the ground, and there's rarely any black found. I noticed that these homes are always completely gone, unless perhaps it's next to a major road and the firemen get there and get it out quick. But you look in the background of the house that's missing, and all you see is trees. Dead center is a pine tree in the back. Pine trees are some of the most flammable trees in the world. Doesn't matter what species. There's about 135 to 138 pines in the world. They all burn fairly quickly, and there's the namesake of a fire, forest fire. So I wanted to show this, and amazing what's left. When I get to these sites and analyze them, it's rare I find glass. If I do, it's usually melted and flowing away from the house. It's melted off 2 or 3 feet. And sometimes I can't even find the glass. I'm not sure what type of temperatures these get to. Auto glass in our vehicles starts to melt out at 2,500 degrees. And perhaps the flow in onto the inside of the car or out onto the street, it might go up to 27 or even 3,000 degrees. I'm not sure, but it starts at 2,500 degrees. This is still in Manitoba, I believe. All you see in the background are trees. And mostly the number one thing they're burning are homes and businesses. I will see forest dead with the trunk of the trees black, but the needles will still be hanging on these trees. And that's the number one fuel in a forest fire, is the needles. The only exception is if they're right next to a house within 6 or 10 feet. Then they burn up. Other than that, they're not catching fire. In California and Southern Oregon, I've been to 46 fire aftermaths now in 8 years, and I've taken 128 trips to all of these. I've done a lot of footwork analyzing these, and I'll spend a whole day at these fire sites and take many photographs and analyze everything I can. And so here's one of your windows in this truck. They're always melted out. Every single window I have seen in 8 years or 9 years, they've always been melted out. Not one has been intact. All the paint's usually gone. Anything attached to the metal itself is melted out. Even your aluminum blocks on these engines are melted out. And there's not enough combustible materials in the engine compartment to warrant this kind of burn pattern. Belts, hoses, plastics in there cannot get to those temperatures to achieve melting aluminum blocks. Yet, I will see some of these puddles 30 feet flowing away from a vehicle, and they finally solidify and stop. And there's no combustible materials along the way as they flow away. I will find some pictures of that. Here's some rims here that were aluminum, and they will come out in chunks or they will melt out. Depends on the alloy. Alloy, I guess. Windows are gone. Every car looks the same. It's rare to find anything that's different unless the firemen get there quick enough. Trying to get the clearest ones I can. You see the aluminum here, and it's not the rims, I don't think. This is the engine melted out. Whatever parts and components are aluminum, they've melted out. Windshield's gone. And then you see the trees. And now a forest fire tops out at 1,472 degrees. That's the max, unless you're adding some type of accelerant. That's as hot as it gets. And here these windows are melting out above that at 2,500 degrees. So there's a lot of questions there on how could that even happen. Many of the vehicles are sitting by themselves, away from structures, trees, dirt, just sitting out in the dirt or pavement and nothing around them. And they still look the same. These trees look like they're in the, related to aspen or poplar, which are high water holding capacity trees. So I didn't expect much damage to them except internally. Our water loving trees or high water holding capacity trees are actually burning from the inside out. And that's the microwave technology that they're using against us, basically. The pine trees won't burn as much as a water lover. And up there in Canada, it looks like you have at least 4 different poplars up there. The aspen, the balsam poplar, the narrowleaf poplar, and black cottonwood. They all belong to the populus genus in the willow family. And of course, you have many species of willow. When I find those 2 types of trees, they are burning internally, and sometimes the leaves will not even incinerate. When the leaves are hanging on the ground, they will not burn. Here's a bridge up there in Canada, and you take good note at the wood where mostly it burns, where the metal components are, bolts, hinges, screws, things like that, and even wires. And then it just kind of goes out. Too much wood left over. And in the background, it looks like a swampy area that's a little black, and I believe that's from the water. The liquids actually are burning, like lahaina in Hawaii. This might be in Manitoba now. I'm not positive. You see a dead forest here and there. They're brown, but I can't say they're burned up. And what's on fire? The home. And this is everywhere I go. The metals are on fire. It's like putting your car or your house inside of a giant microwave and turning it on. Doesn't work too well in the organic matter. It dries it out internally from the inside out, but I don't believe they combust unless there's some metal components in the water, some type of metals. Same thing here. Boy, a good 30, 40 homes have just turned to white ash. And this one was fairly hot, so the trees burned up to some degree, but around the perimeter, the forest refused to ignite. It's dried out, cooked, but it just wouldn't ignite. And you probably have 5 to 10 different conifers up here, mostly in the pine family, and perhaps you have a couple cedars also. All those should have burned first, and then the houses second, but it's the opposite world. Everything that should burn doesn't, and everything that is burning shouldn't. Same areas. I think this is Saskatchewan, I believe. This must have been a smaller house or cabin. It's just completely gone, and where'd the fire come from? There's forest on both sides. Only the closest trees to the house seem to burn up. Most of the time, I will find deciduous trees that lose their leaves in the wintertime and hold more water than the conifers. I will see those burn first. The ones with the most water, generally from the inside out and up and down the length of the trunk, sometimes to 80 feet in the air. That I believe is the cambial fluids just inside the bark, the most active vascular part of the tree where all your liquids go up and down. And I believe that's what's being ignited and turning the tree black. Because I will see that in the forest. and not one leaf will be burned, just the trunk, even pine needles, unaffected. Okay, I'm gonna switch over now to another area. I wanted to show folks what a real firestorm would look like. This one's my photo now, the first of many, but this is my photo up near the volcano Mount Lassen, Northern California. This is what a firestorm should look like. The forest is burned and left poles, sometimes limbless, cut in half, or burned to a low stump, and even a hole in the ground. That's how hot they get. And this is probably 2 to 3 years later because the greenery is coming back. I wanted to point that out. A lot of people try to find these pictures, and they're actually off the internet. They've been scrubbed off the internet. The ones you'll find are back from the 1910, 1913. A few very old pictures. The rest are just gone. I'm going to show some pictures around California and go over materials a little bit. This is Paradise, the Great Paradise Fire in California in 2018, where approximately 18,000 homes were turned to white ash. And look at the trees. Our number one forest tree in California is a ponderosa pine. And by the way, it burns more often than any other species in our state. And here they are, unburned. Homes below them, around them, in between them. What kind of forest fire goes up and down and forgets to burn the forest? Pretty crazy here. Also, there's a row of Italian cypress down there on the left. For whatever reason, the Italian cypress seem to combust, and I think it's something to do with their sap. It's a little bit more runny, if you will. Sap in pine trees ignite at 662 degrees. That's the temperature for most of your pine trees. It's a picture I took down out of San Francisco, California, where they burned down Big Basin State Park that was filled with redwood trees. But on the coast, Highway 1, with the ocean behind me, I'm looking at blue gum eucalyptus. For anybody that knows, the eucalyptus genus has some of the most flammable or combustible leaves on the planet. The fire went under the trees, turned the trunks black for 40, 50 feet, but they didn't burn one leaf. I can take a cigarette lighter out of my pocket and light these trees on fire, even a green leaf. What kind of flame will not ignite a eucalyptus? And that's where I start talking some sort of microwave energy. Been studying this for a while now, and the different energy weapons we're hearing about is different lasers or maser with an M, scalar waves, but I've spoken with a man that builds robots actually, and he informed me that this weapon is actually called near infrared, and you cannot see it coming down from wherever it's being launched. So near infrared is the closest we've got to it, and we even believe 5G may have a smaller component to these fires. And some folks even talk about the smart meters on our houses, which that might even play into it. Multiple technologies, and we're just trying to figure out which one is correct and tell the world. Like your cottonwoods I mentioned up north, your poplar genus, this is our largest in California and the western states, called a Fremont cottonwood. This one's about 4 feet in diameter, burned from the inside out, and it's in a spring. I know it wasn't hollow. It was happy where it was. It cooked internally and didn't burn one leaf. Huge hot flames, but it refused to ignite a leaf. We're dealing with a different type of flame here. This was a mulberry tree. Mulberry trees are in the fig family. They both contain white juice. These have to be in a lawn to be healthy, and there was lawns in this mobile home park. It looks like lightning hit this thing for an hour. I've never seen anything like this, and burned from the inside out again. Amazing pictures I've taken in the last 8 years. In Canada, if people want to go out and analyze these fire aftermaths, there's key components that need to be looked at. Besides all your trees that hold the most water, and they're usually in the riparian corridors, the creeks, lakes, springs, rivers, or marshy lands. The next is tires. These tires usually look like this. All the rubber's completely gone, and there's steel belts in a coil. I cannot find rubber, ever. And then maybe 1 out of 200 tires, it looks like this. I changed lenses, put a close-up lens on. And they're polyester cord. They're unaffected. I will not see them melted at all, not even a tiny, tiny bit. And I believe there's one steel belt, the cord, if you will, that holds it on the rim, right on the edge of the tire here, the inside edge. But this is the way I find them, and they're laying right in the fire area. It's black everywhere, and they're untouched, unscathed completely. But this is the one I see everywhere. And these could be 6 feet apart, and there's that rubber tire. I'll pick it up and move it to make sure it wasn't just rolled there. Nope, there's a ring in the soil. I'm seeing this everywhere. In your wooden fence posts. These are at every aftermath. Whoever's going around and stealing all your, or clearing off your lot, taking your house away, they usually take everything, clear your lot so there'd be no evidence left. And I'm not even sure they know that they're getting rid of evidence. But I will find this everywhere. The burn marks will be around nails, screws, bolts, hinges, any other type of metals. And if the barbed wire is wrapped enough times around it, it will burn mostly where the most wrapping is. And I'll have a picture of that. This is a board I collected. It was called the Oak Fire, Mariposa City, California, right next to Yosemite National Park. They put an old gentleman in jail and pinned it on him. They're framing him, and they have 16 felonies against him. This man could hardly walk. And I found this board as well as many other anomalies, a 2x4, and the only place it burned is where every nail was hammered into it to hold the fence together. Nowhere else. I've got that in my possession now. It was litter out on next to the street, so I felt I could collect it. This will be on the cover of my book when it gets printed late this summer, Microwave Forest Fires. Another picture of mine, this is the Fawn Fire up in Redding, California, near the volcano Mount Shasta. They put a blonde-haired lady in jail, and I found this whole fence line that looked like this. Why were the nails on fire, and the fire didn't continue to climb up the post? Many anomalies in that fire also. These are things to look at in your fires in Canada. If you can get there quick enough and they let you in there, look for your fences, look for the metal fasteners, and see how they burn. Look at the burn patterns and share it with everybody. Get a picture. These are all different posts from all different fires. Doesn't matter where I go, the same signature is there. And also, these wooden posts will burn at the ground, because I really do believe the ground itself is on fire. You notice the bottoms are always burned, but that fire refused to climb up, burn the whole post, and drop the nails on the ground. It's not happening. Any kind of wood, this is some type of cedar, either incense or red cedar from California. Tall, split rail fence, only place it wanted to burn, where the nails were. Yeah, so I've got a bunch of these. I just wanted to show you they're all different locations. There's the barbed wire. 3 feet off the ground, looks like an old railroad tie. And where the most wrapping of the wire is, and there's a bunch of nails with it. That's where the fire burned. And this is very short grassland around here. Somebody either mows it or uses a weed eater. There's no old grass where it's really tall. Nope. And of course, the media would tell you the flying embers flew up there and just happened to land where all the metals are. No, they're lying. This was a parking block off of Highway 101 north of San Francisco. Probably a 30-foot parking block. The only place it burned is where the bolts were attached to the stud going into the ground. And I have 2 or 3 to show that each one's different. That's the only place it burned, which has been taken away now. I couldn't find it when I went back. Another fire locally here in the San Francisco Bay Area where they burned down some older folks' home. All the new houses were left alone, and the oldest property there burned like this. Anomalies everywhere. That was June 1st last year, called the Corral Fire. And it actually started on the property of Lawrence Livermore Atomic, Research Lab, where they build the 1 trillion watt laser. I followed the road up. They have 2 labs. This one started right on their property behind their building and then burned all the way over to Highway 5, our main freeway going north-south through California. I found these burned like this everywhere. Whole fence line, even the neighbor's fence line, looked like this.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the Freedom Movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
Guardrails will come out the same. This is just one of the better ones. Many of them are burned only at the top and the bolt just lays there. And then the bottom will have some burning also. Won't burn the whole post. Nope. This is that mobile home park in our California Delta. 19 of the mobile homes burned to the ground. The only wood on the property is the deck to get inside. They refuse to ignite. Nice old dry wood that's so beat up it should have burned first. Nope. This is a different one. There's your door to get inside the mobile home. It didn't burn anywhere on that wood, as well as these other items in the foreground. Even the side of the coach, the wood didn't even turn black. And this is a horrific fire. We have a different flame. And in the background on the left, these are eucalyptus. None of them burned either. I have materials at every spot, and I move these around to make sure there's no leaves on them and anything. Synthetics aren't burning. Plastics aren't burning. I moved that bag of soil just to look underneath of it. Nope. Thinnest plastic in the world. Refused to ignite. A tennis shoe. This was all in Calistoga, where all our hot springs are in the wine country. There was a house that had all these different items. And back at Big Basin, they wouldn't let you in the park for 2 years. So when I drove around the perimeter, I saw the homes burned. And forest was brown, but I can't say the trees actually burned up. And here's plastic swimming pool with not one hole in it. Amazing. Oh, and the blue tarp, of course. There's a lot of talk about the blue tarps and paint on homes that possibly they don't burn because of the blue spectrum, if you will. But I can't dwell on that too much. To me, it's plastic and they're not melting. And even in the foreground on the left, that's a deer fence to put around these little fruit trees here. That's plastic. And these were horrific firestorms. These redwood trees are the tallest trees in the world. And these here are, 100 feet tall probably. Black all the way up, but the needles refuse to burn. Yeah. Another thing I'd like people to wake up if they can get to these fires is look for stockpiles of things that didn't burn, like this one. I got in here early. All the plastics on I don't know how many properties. They brought all the garbage bins together, different fencing, wood, all these things that should have burned that didn't, and they were preparing to take them off site so nobody would notice. But I got there early enough. These are the 2 tallest trees in the world, I think. Yeah. Coastal redwood and Douglas fir, king of the pine family. The Douglas fir is actually the 2nd tallest tree in the world now. This is the way you find your windows. They melt and then they break apart, probably as they're cooling off. They actually break apart. That's all I can figure. but not hot enough to melt the steel of the car. I think that hovers around 4,000 degrees, but the windows start their melting at 2,500 and perhaps all the way to 3,000. Not sure. This is another thing I want to point out to people. If they find the log piles and they're going to take them off to the mill after one of these fires, look at the ends. That's 90% heartwood, dead tissue. These are the tallest trees in the world. They should not have that amount of heartwood in the middle. It should be a little tiny brown area because these things will be 15 or up to 20 feet across. Then you would imagine seeing heartwood. But these are toddlers. In human years, these are just 1-year-olds. Really, there should be white sap, almost 100% through and through, and a little bit of brown in the middle, possibly. But these were cooked internally from the inside out. Probably already ready to go to the mill. They've already been pre-dried. And I cut redwoods down a lot. In the last 33 years of doing tree work, when I cut them down, they're all white inside. Here's another pile of different trees. I can't remember where this one was. Same thing, though. Look at the heartwood buildup. It's even cracked in the middle. These are all young trees. Why is there so much heartwood? That's a really important thing for arborists to understand and firemen. Back to that Reading location, you'll find the homes like this, only metals and stonework left, and I don't care what species of trees, they will not be burned. Here's a deodar cedar left of the center, the narrow, skinny one from the Himalayas. That's pine family, should have burned. To the right's the ponderosa pine. Behind it is our lowland foothill pine or digger pine. Also the one on the left, the multi-branched one. Not one pine family relative here burned. And there's valley oak here, black oak and blue oak and interior live oak, or canyon live oak, I'm sorry. Nothing burned, just the house. And that's where the lady's in jail for 2 or 3 years now. They're doing that all over. They're putting innocent people in jail. I wanted to talk about the Los Angeles fires in January. This is the middle of winter. We had the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire, where they intend to put the 2028 Olympics. At least that's what I hear. 16,000 homes are gone, and look at the trees. Hard to find one that burned. This is why they've taken the word forest out of forest fires, because the forest isn't burning anymore, and they don't want to let anybody wake up to this. Brown trees, green trees, can't say they really burned up. Same area down there. Just trees everywhere, and a few people actually, their homes survived. So I wanted to move around a lot so you could see that it's happening all over the world. Here's your rims flowing way out here, 10 feet away from the vehicle. And what's keeping it flowing? In the background, these are Torrey pines, a native of our Southern California coast. They didn't want to burn. Nothing burns except metals. I've analyzed fires around the world just looking at the computers. Lahaina, Greece, Italy, France, London, England. Your Fort McMurray, Canada, in Lytton or Lytton up there. Tennessee, the country of Chile, the Great Australian Fire. They just attack any country they want. And right now, Israel's on fire. 480 fires in 5 days. So you'll find the same type of photos on the internet from every country. They all look the same. This is an old shot that somebody else took from the air of Santa Rosa. I happened to go there 4 or 5 times. At the top's McDonald's, the gas station to the right, and the left is Jack in the Box. They've all been eliminated except for the metals and stonework. What caught them on fire? Not one tree here burned. All 3 trees are in the poison oak family. African sumac, Peruvian or California pepper, and Chinese pistache or pistachio. Actually, the only tree I saw in this whole area that burned was just out of the screen at the top. It was an extra weeping willow full of water. The whole thing was completely cooked and dead. That's the only tree that burned. Nothing else. We have Highway 101 here with 6 lanes of highway. And this fire only burned the buildings. An orchard down here. I'm sure you have pear and apple orchards up there everywhere. If a fire comes through, analyze the bottoms. This had short grass everywhere, like in the background. How could it possibly be burned through a wall? This is an English walnut tree. They hold a lot of water. The whole orchard looked like this. The bottom's burned, where all the liquids were. It traveled up the trunk a little bit. They're probably sprouting out from the ground. Walnuts are almost indestructible. But here, the whole orchard looked like this. And some of them, far worse, burned all the way through. And the grass in the background, of course, couldn't have done this. You could put 4-foot grass against this thing, light it on fire, it'd burn right past it and would not do this at all. You'd have to have kindling and firewood to do this kind of damage. Trees are burning from the inside out, like I said. This is probably a California bay, our native bay tree. They're leaning over the road, so they cut them down. Well, I get there quick enough, I see many of these cavities in the middle, and this is compacted soils around it, where there's no weeds growing. Vehicles and tractors and trucks drive around it as a turnaround, so the weeds can hardly grow. How did the middle of this tree burn out? So it's been cooked from the inside out. And mostly it's the trees that hold the most water, not the sappy conifers that should be burning, at least from the outside in, which that isn't happening either. This was a half-mile away from the fire in the middle of a grape vineyard, all by itself. Nothing was on fire, just the tree from the inside out. More of that walnut orchard. Just amazing, this technology we're dealing with. What else do I have to say about that? What we really have to do is find out who's making these weapons, the manufacturers, what companies, the operators of all these systems, and where they're at. We have to get in there and figure out who's doing this so we can put some type of a stop to it. This is a blue oak tree, as well as any oak. There's about 500 oak trees in the world. Somewhere around half are deciduous and the other half are evergreen. One thing they all have in common, they hold a ton of water. Very drought-tolerant trees, but they don't have a high evaporation rate out of their leaves. They have a very low transpiration rate where the water actually goes out of the leaves. They'll open up their leaves more at night and transfer their liquids. So they hold their water. When I cut them open, sometimes they will geyser water an inch above the cut I made with my chainsaw. Eucalyptus also, an inch of a geyser, just pressure, shooting the water up. So they're all burning from the inside out. There's also piles of stuff they're taking away. This was hidden. I probably spoke about this before on one of our other previous videos. Real important to get in there early and see what they're not, what didn't burn, and what they're piling up to take off your property, basically stealing. Many of these things here should have burned or melted. The hoses, the little pots, the chair, the PVC, all kinds of stuff. And even that toe strap in there. They're just throwing everything in a pile and taking it off site. And that's all I have. I wanted to finish with this nice rattlesnake picture I took. That's all I have to say about my photographs. I just want everybody to stay vigilant, open your eyes, get to these sites, bring a friend, bring everybody you can, and take pictures. Share them far and wide, because we have to stop this horror.
Well, thank you, Robert. As you say, you're showing the anomalies, you're showing compelling information. I appreciate that you are teaching our viewers what to look for. And I would imagine, especially in Manitoba and Saskatchewan right now, and other areas that are being hardest hit, one of the factors is, how do we get in there? How do we get onto our property as well to get this evidence? Because generally, in Canada anyways, and I don't know if that's the same in the US, they usually have the police prohibiting people from going back to their property. Is that the same of what you experience in the US as well?
There'll be even armed military, and the first thing they see on the media, that's for the thieves that might come in there. Well,
right.
There's nothing left. And the few houses that are in there, why wouldn't they just let people go into their houses? To me, they're just protecting all the evidence that's there, like they did in Lahaina, put in a fence around it. They don't want us to take pictures and share it to the world and show the actual truth. Yes, there's always a thief somewhere, but I don't believe their rhetoric at all. And if they don't let you in these giant fires, some of these little ones, 5 or 10 acres, if you find out there's a house been burned, a fence, a creek area, a lot of these fires follow the riparian creeks. They go along the creek and they don't even climb out of the creek valley and go up the hill. They just follow the water source, which is, of course, what electrical currents would do. That's what they would favor. So even little fires, go out, find them. You might find some anomalies there.
Well, everything you're doing, you're talking about, right? I was interested. So I want to first say you have a new book coming out, and I believe you mentioned the title during the show, Microwave Forest Fires.
Yes.
Okay, because when we first had you, I think it was the first time we had you on the show, and like I say, we've done a series of 3, so this will be number 4. And I remember our team taking a microwave and then putting one of your images inside it and showing the white ash houses with all the trees standing and calling it this microwave effect. And that's when we started to learn about direct energy weaponry. You think this is something out of a conspiracy theorist movie or something out of Hollywood. But the more that we had you on the show and the more that we were viewing the evidence and information you had, it's like, yeah, there's no way to deny that this is actually happening. And what you're just saying about it following a path of water as well, scientifically. Can I ask you, what does the fire department say? Do you run into many firefighters where you're having the conversations and bringing this up?
No, zero. They're not educated enough. They won't teach them about this, what's going on with these. And I believe any of them that are speaking up and talking to people above them, they're probably shut down quick and told to be quiet or they'll be fired, lose their retirement. Who knows? But I don't believe they're being educated on trees that are flammable, combustibility rates of any of the trees. And they would only have to learn about 5, the pines, the eucalyptus, and the California Bay, or a few others. But they're not educating them. The only 2 that I know of is John Lord, who passed away, and Matt Dakin, who's still a good friend of mine, 2 30-year fire captains that analyzed Paradise and Santa Rosa. And they saw right through this in a second. But they have a little outdoor training and they camp and they're used to what fires really do, besides going out and just putting them out. And we have awful long talks together, the 3 of us, or 2 of us now, Matt and I. And Matt's all over the internet also, Matt Dakin, 33-year fire captain. And he has great footage himself on Paradise, the same as stuff I have, all the same anomalies. Besides, smart meters also burned up. One of the trips he took was with Deborah Tavares. Many of your viewers probably heard of Deborah, who's become a friend of mine also.
And, when you talked about the smart meters about 3 weeks ago, I got my bill in the mail, and then they said, oh, and by the way, they're going to put a new meter on your house. And I've already told them years ago, no, you're not. So I called and I said, I've received this notice and I want you to know right now, I'm not having any smart meter installed into my home. And they say, oh, it's a standard and it's fine. And, this is the direction that we're going. And I said, look, I know that these are causing harm, and you know that these are causing harm. And then they tried to say that the government of Canada has approved them. And I said, don't even go there with me about what the government has or hasn't approved, even with 5G, because they've never updated it in something like 60 years to say what kind of EMF and energy coming into your home is actually safe. And with 5G, never mind with 4G, the United Nations had deemed it a carcinogenic. So what kind of chemicals that are sprayed on trees, and some of them they're banning because they're carcinogenic. They go penetrate the skin and they're making people sick, causing cancer and other harms. So they're covering up the 4G, the 5G, and the fact that it's carcinogenic, the fact that it actually penetrates your skin, and it is causing people, as we have mentioned, to have that microwave effect where you feel like sometimes it's like, there's just, I don't want to say this extra energy in the air, but something is disrupting our system. And that we're being overloaded with it in our homes with all of this new technology. And I would say to our viewers, start saying no. And there's enough evidence. So again, I say that, but now you'd have to dig for it, I would imagine, on the internet to have any of this available.
a good friend of mine, Orleans, who writes books about 5G, and I've spoken at her house and other churches up north in Santa Rosa. She's written many books on 5G, and in her little court in the Tubbs fire, that was Santa Rosa, she had her smart meter taken off of her house. When the fire came, it burned everybody's house to the ground, but not hers.
Oh,
She's a
wow.
wonderful person. You can find her books. I can't pronounce her last name, but that's Orleans, who's become a great friend and done some videos with me and with Matt Dakin. Same with Michelle Melendez, the lady that wrote the book, The Great Maui Land Grab. She's in Hawaii. She put me in her book and put Matt in the book also. And I had to say something about this climate change. I've been mountaineering for half a century. I usually know every flower, fern, shrub, vine, and tree in the whole state. I'm pretty well versed. Before I even left high school, I knew over 4,000 plants. I wrote them all down. Kind of nerdy that way.
Yeah.
But I've been climbing mountains for half a century, and 2 weeks ago I was up there. There's plenty of snow. All the wildflowers are the same size. I don't see any difference in the fauna, Ethan. It's all the same animals. I don't see the massive tree die off. I'm looking for everything they talk about in this climate change. I've not seen a change in 50 years, and I know what I'm looking at. All these plants. It's just a huge, huge lie, and we got to find a way to stop all this.
Right. So you would see those changes, though, I would imagine, in some of the national parks that they're setting on fire. I remember last year we had you on the show when Jasper here in Alberta went up. And again, you proved that there were anomalies. And then once we started to research it as well, the mayors and city council, or one of the city councilors, had just attended an Ottawa event with all of the different mayors. And it was focused on pretty much, you could say, the 15-minute city strategy. And so when they came back, he was very excited to implement this strategy. Next thing you know, there's this massive fire. Then, all of this land grab. Does the province, does the federal government own the land, or the province, or the people? It's just a real mess. And people deserve to be in jail, but it's not the ones that are arresting. Somebody in the chat was talking about Ed Wackerman from the Oak Fire,
Yes.
who has apparently something like 16 charges against him, and he's been in prison for over 2 years without bail. He's 70 years old. There's no way that he could have started this fire and ran. And
I happened to go to that fire before he was arrested, 140 miles from my house. From my house, close to Yosemite. I spent the whole day there before I came home, took pictures everywhere, and included that board in there. Then, maybe a year later, I find out this guy's in jail. So I called his lawyer up, spoke to his lawyer, and told him, watch some of my videos, and you'll see what's really going on. I even have pictures of that fire. He didn't believe me. And I told him I'm going to be in that courtroom for the first case. I showed up. Oldest courthouse in California, in Mariposa. I went in there. It was very quiet. He looked over and saw me. There's only 20 people in the whole room. He saw me and he walked over to the prosecutor, whispered something to him, and they're both looking at me and whispering. Then they called the judge down. All three were together, whispering, looking at me. Then the judge went back up to his podium and canceled the court date. No excuses whatsoever. I happened to be in that room. And I've talked to Ed Wakerman's daughter, Julie, she's up in Alaska and wants me to help him. I want to take that board and put it in there and fry these fire investigators. They don't have a chance against me. They probably haven't studied plants. Anyway, I'd like to do something about it. I really don't like the injustice of this. And he's just one. All over California, they're putting people in jail that have done nothing.
Yeah. Well, I've got to imagine that your evidence would be beyond dispute. And the person that is here today, it's Em, and obviously advocating for Ed, and has a heart for that as well. So thank you, Robert, for taking that stand. So it looks like, does that mean potentially, possibly, that this individual's lawyer could be in on it?
He's corrupt.
And so they need to fire this lawyer, and they need to find somebody else. So if anybody knows of a lawyer in this area who is willing to take on big bad government, this is a fight worth fighting. And because this is definitely a conspiracy against the citizens of California and individuals to put them wrongfully in prison to shut them up and I guess send a clear message to anybody else that would dare to question the current scenario.
That's right. And this poor old guy, he's 73 years old, he's a diabetic. He can barely walk. When they let him in the courtroom, they didn't have him cross the room and sit with the other people. He sat right next to the door, on the very corner of the courtroom, all chained up like some horrible convict. And when they arrested him, they told him, come on down to town. We got to talk to you. Halfway down the road somewhere, all the cops were there with all their guns drawn on this poor old gentleman. And they said, people saw him running from the fire.
Mm-hmm.
This guy can't even walk. All they do is lie, and they own the medias. And of course, when you see it on YouTube, anything about this, almost 100% of the people responding say, oh, put the guy in jail, and they're against him because that's on the media. Well, one of the medias, But I've been there before. And then when I went to the court case, I was there for 3 days. I analyzed all over the place and found more anomalies. It's terrible.
Well, we're going to hope and pray that, Robert, you're going to be able to provide the evidence. We're going to pray for your safety and security as all of us are on the front line here exposing this evil agenda. There's a major advantage because now in the United States, you've got Donald Trump at the helm, who is passing a lot of policies to come up against, for instance, geoengineering and, with Robert Kennedy about making America healthy again as far as your production of food is concerned and the chemicals that are sprayed on them. And I know that somebody, I think it's Wilma here, has asked about the Jasper fires. It's a good question. One of the things she's saying is that there was multiple acres. You had just mentioned at the beginning of the show that millions of acres are being burned. So we know that trees are burning. Previously, in fires in the last couple of years, in the Okanagan, there was a fire, and there were witnesses who said that there was spraying done in advance of these fires happening, which some people felt caused them to ignite and burn more extensively. Are you experiencing or witnessing anything like that? Do you have any evidence of that?
Evidence is just what I've seen on the flora, because I know almost every plant I see. If it's an accelerant, it's not working on the trees, lest the needles would burn. The first thing on a tree would burn is the needles, especially pine family. They're not burning. Only, like I said, close to metal structures or a river where there's liquids. Right. So I can't believe it's an actual accelerant for the forest because they're not burning. They're not.
But what about
not the needles?
But what about the hectares in Canada that where the forests are actually burning? Or are you saying that they're igniting, but that they're not burning to the extent that normal natural fires do?
Yeah, now I've not seen all of those areas, but every one I've looked at, 46 or 43, the needles are on the trees after the fire. Then they fall off in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Only needles burning is right next to a house. And you saw my picture of a normal forest fire. It burns everything and leaves a pole. Mm-hmm. That's the way it should be, especially when they say, oh, it's a horrific firestorm. It's up in the trees. Well, why doesn't it look like my picture? And I have other pictures like that. Like I said, I've been climbing mountains for 50 years. I have tons of pictures of fires, real ones, what they really look like, and they don't leave the trees. How can we even call it a forest fire?
Yeah, well, I remember when I was a kid, my family I live in BC in the Lower Mainland, and we would go to the Okanagan for a summer vacation every year. And there was multiple times where we would drive through the mountains and a fire had ravaged. And as you say, it looked exactly like what you had said, just absolutely burned, destroyed, just black sticks sticking out of the ground. Yeah. And last year or year before, I was driving the Coquihalla into the interior again, and it's exactly as you're describing.
Yeah. They talked about Paradise where, the wind was going so fast, it was 70 to 80 miles an hour, and great. Was it at the ground level? And they want to try to tell me that. Well, it's down around your legs. I never felt the wind that went around my legs. It blows through all the trees. Trees didn't burn. You saw my Paradise picture. And that's not mine. That was taken off the internet. Same with all these places.
Now, on previous shows, when you were on, and I really do encourage people to, I know there was some repeat today, but a lot of it was new. But on one of the other shows, you had shown where there was fires igniting under the earth. And I found that, well, one, very, very concerning, because how would it ignite randomly under the earth? It's not like it's volcanic. And
Right.
have you come across anything further?
I've not seen it in action. I always show up a month later, the fire's out, maybe a little smoldering somewhere. But of course, that's the water content, sap, water, whatever. It's the fluids of the trees that are being ignited. And of course, underground, the oxygen levels it's oxygen starved, but somehow they just keep on going. I've seen them look like badger holes. Giant roots are missing, and there's tunnels going everywhere from where the stump was. Like, where did it all go? It just kept on burning, and that would be your sappy pines mostly. But I'm not going to rule out the water lovers either. You see what the Fremont cottonwoods and all the different aspen and so forth. I've seen horrific ones where there's only the outer bark left, and the leaves, of all things, the leaves. You can light a leaf on fire with a match. They don't burn unless they're by water or metals, mostly metals, whether it's ferrous or not. And
Okay,
all these technologies, I think there's a crossover of technologies, and maybe they even hire some arsonists to set some real fires. I don't rule that out either.
well, I'm wondering what the technology is about, because you know that in a microwave, you need moisture in the microwave for it to work. And one of the questions was, what is the scientific explanation for water burning?
I can't elaborate on it. I just know the vascular system of the tree is ignited. Put a glass of water in your microwave versus a glass of chili, the water heats up way faster. I can't take it beyond that. That's above my knowledge. I don't know why the water heats up so much. I know the molecules are moving faster, agitated. And how does it combust with this odd flame? I'm still trying to find out what the composition of the flame is. It's not a normal wood fire flame list. Everything would have burned up.
No. And we know what metal does in a microwave as well. Anybody that's put a teacup in the microwave by accident knows that there's going to be some sparking and zapping going on in there.
Crazy.
And so again, without having any firm evidence of this, it's the question is, how do we get the real evidence to find out who is doing this and why? That's been one of the questions, is like, what's the point? Why would anyone do this? Well, in Canada, we know that we have vast amounts of ranch land, for instance, that the globalists want to get rid of the cattle industry.
Wow.
I'm in contact with one of the ranching associations because they're very concerned for multiple reasons what's going on. There's a couple of ways that they're coming after them. They're, of course, with the Indian land grabs, that, we're white colonists that owe everything, back to the Indians, etc. So they're trying to take any rich land that is tied to, interestingly, a water source like the ocean, rivers, lakes. And then, of course, what better way as well to clear people off their land, or people don't want to move to the interior or get 80 acres of land anymore, or 1,000 acres of land, because if those fires come, what will the consequence be, especially for ranchers with all those cattle? And then as well, we were discussing before the show that you can't even get insurance anymore if you live in these locations. So they're really trying to force people to lose their land, to give up their property, to move into controllable locations like 15-minute cities. So at the end of the show, I will bring up our 15-minute city page, because I'm sure people are sitting here thinking, what can we do? And, what we would recommend is that you take videos and information like this, and you start sitting down with your mayor and city council, your MLA, your MP, and you start engaging with them in conversation. And because they're going to maybe call you conspiracy theorists, then you say, okay, fair enough. But how about this? How about you watch the information that I've been researching, and then let's have another conversation. And if they reject that, then they're either ignorant, lazy, or they know what's going on and they're part of the problem. But for the majority of the times, for a lot of the time, of what we're finding is that a lot of these elected officials aren't looking past the end of their nose or CNN or global news. And so that's where we have a real opportunity as citizens across the country to get in and help educate these individuals. And then with Action for Canada, we have a 15-minute city notice of liability against the 15-minute cities, but it covers all of this climate change propaganda. I mean, this initiative is coming from an unelected global body that are interfering with our democracy. And that is considered in America and in the United States as treason. And when you have a counselor that got elected or an MLA who is not that aware but just wanted to run for office, maybe the perks, whatever reason, and all of a sudden they're seeing the evidence that you have, it's compelling, and now you're threatening them with personal liability, they begin to get a little more interested in what you have to say. So, Robert, what other
I only had two more
suggestions
things.
do you have?
Two more things is, and this is for everybody. I'm not going to get rich off this book. I already know that, and that's not my plan. Any of the photographs I shared, especially my own, that I took, anybody in the world can use them. I'm not going to copyright any of my photos. Use them, share them, talk it up. I don't care how you use it. And I told Michelle that in Hawaii. Use my photos any way you want, if you need evidence.
Can I ask you, when is your book going to be published?
It's probably going to be late summer. There's still quite a bit of things to put in it. And the way things are going right now, I might add more fire aftermath.
Right. Yeah, Robert, when your book is published, please let us know, because this would be an amazing resource for our viewers to purchase and then purchase extra copies and actually deliver them, send them to as many elected officials in your community as possible and ask them for a response. Like, don't just expect that you're going to send a book. Maybe the video may be easier, but we need answers, and we need people to be investigating this. We need the fire department, the chiefs, to be pressed in on as well. They have a responsibility here, just like our RCMP, our federal policing service. They were silenced during COVID. They've been silenced in response to all of the radical extremists coming into our country. Wow. And they've taken an oath to serve and protect who? Canadian citizens. And so we need to mandate that. And then as well, if these fire departments have been infiltrated, or we have weak-kneed chiefs, spineless chiefs that are there and don't want to go against the grain because they know as well something is suspicious and that these fires aren't natural and are too afraid to speak up about it, they need to hear the public backlash. And I think once this starts to build, then we're going to see this change. So, Robert, do you have any word in closing for our audience?
Just hope and pray that we can stem the tide and get everybody on board and work together to stop this evil that's permeating the planet.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your expertise and sharing that with us. Our video will be available on Rumble. We'll be launching it tomorrow. And I always send the Empower Hour out in the weekly news email as well. So you can always, if you haven't joined Action for Canada, please sign up with us, and then you'll be sure to readily get all of this information. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to having you on again. Thank you. Okay, bye. All right. Well, that's really important information. So I hope that you will give us a thumbs up when we launch this on Rumble. We are beginning to also upload our Empower Hours to YouTube. We've been banned in the past, but Dr. McCullough told us last week, no, you can put anything on YouTube because Trump has lifted all of the censorship down in the United States. So let's see if Action for Canada will last on YouTube and see if we can, reach out to a greater audience. So please assist us in that. Share our information and take us serious. Like, don't just watch this program and say, yeah, that's good ideas to share this with elected officials. Really do your part, because as our voice rises together in unity, that is truly when we see that we are making an actual change and shifting the scenario. And we're going to just expose the corruption and those who are behind this. All right, next week, as our guest, it's going to be Ted Kuntz. I am excited to have him on the show because we're going to be talking about this measles scare tactic from Big Pharma. There has been a massive rise in parents' vaccine hesitancy, immunization hesitancy, of course, because of all the evidence coming out that the immunizations are causing vaccine injury to children. And they've been covering this information up for a long time. But with Trump at the helm down in the United States and Robert Kennedy Jr. at the helm as well, they are exposing Big Pharma. They're talking about the adjuvants those are the metals that are in the vaccines. And the other day, I have a report where the mercury is being banned from the flu shots. These are things that travel through your body, and some reports have said, and we had Dr. McCullough on last week, some reports have claimed, and there is evidence of it, that as this moves through your system, autism is increased, autoimmune, along with other ingredients that they've included. And as Dr. McCullough said last week, when you combine ingredients, that adds to the heightened chance that your child will have a vaccine injury. Anyways, Ted Kuntz is going to come on, and he's going to provide this information much more eloquently than I can. And we're looking forward to that. We're also going to cover pregnancy and how Big Pharma is really trying to push vaccines for pregnant women, what the results are of that and the warnings. TED and Vaccine Choice Canada are just doing a phenomenal job. They have a couple of new guides for pregnancy as well as regarding child immunizations. And this is their time to shine. After over 30 years of ringing the bell about vaccines, TED and his team are finally having the voice and the platform where people are ready to listen. So do join us next week. It's going to be a very important show. And then the Bible verse for today, it's actually a number of verses. I found this on the internet and I thought, you know what, this covers so much. I mean, we could be so naturally freaking out about the fires and about, all of the corruption in this global agenda. But Hebrews 13:15 says, take one day at a time. And then it says, remember, all things work together for good. That's from Romans 8:28. Under no circumstances should you worry. Philippians 4:6. Start every day with prayer and thanksgiving. Thank God that He's perfectly in control. I've said it numerous times before. We're in this mess because Canada, America, and the Western nations that are founded on Christian principles turned their back on God, and they allowed all of this evil to enter our land and into our schools and into our government facilities, and it's time to turn that around. So be on your knees in prayer. Thank God that He's in control. He covers those who are His own, and we have that promise and assurance as well. And then the Lord will never leave you nor forsake you. Hebrews 13:15. And the final verse is from Colossians 3:17, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. So we want to fill Canada once again with the Spirit of the Lord, proclaim the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, who died and rose again for our sins. He is the Son of God who sits at the right hand of the Father, waiting for just the right day to come back. We won't know the time or the hour, so we need to be prepared. And as a country, we need to get right with Him. And there's that promise that it says that if we will humble ourselves and pray, that He will heal our land. So this has got to be the priority. And for the countries that are doing that, we can see that God is truly healing their lands and setting them free. So thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the Freedom Movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, You're also supporting the freedom movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
And those with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says He will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that, because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation have turned our backs on Him and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.